Llawndar all, welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who've not met me before, my name's Bridie. I'm the Humanities Curriculum Partner at the EAS. And the focus of this network meeting is going to be on literacy within humanities, which is formally known as disciplinary literacy. So I'm going to share some thinking with you around disciplinary literacy. There'll be opportunities for you to reflect on your current practice. And then also we're going to hear from Penllyn Primary School about how they've been developing disciplinary literacy, specifically with writing with Year 6. And then also we'll go back into those breakout rooms towards the end of the meeting for you to have a chance to discuss and chat about the contents of this meeting. So what is disciplinary literacy then? So disciplinary literacy is about realising that there are important concepts, dispositions and skills that influence how we communicate in different subjects. So, for example, explaining a food chain in science requires certain vocabulary and language structures that are different to those used to perhaps describe a musical composition. A text we associate with the visual arts are different to novels that children might study in English. And then comprehending a primary source in history requires a certain set of skills that are different to those needed to appreciate a poem. So disciplinary literacy is an approach that is recommended by the Education Endowment Foundation, where the teaching of literacy serves the needs of the discipline. And in our case, within Wales, it's the needs of the area of learning. So disciplinary literacy is about children, as you can see on the screen, reading, writing and thinking in different ways across different disciplines. So that is reading, writing, thinking like a historian, like a geographer, etc. It's about then utilising specific vocabulary, disciplinary vocabulary that will help them understand what they're reading and help them think and write in those discipline-specific ways, and utilising a variety of texts that are appropriate to that discipline. So if we look at this in a little bit more detail then, disciplinary literacy is a strong form of literacy integration. It's, as I said, reading, thinking and writing in discipline-appropriate ways. And it's a way of developing content knowledge and literacy skills together in an enjoyable way. But disciplinary literacy is not just reading in a subject, so it's not just reading in history, reading in geography. It's not just using literacy to answer questions about history or about geography, and disciplinary literacy is not the same in every subject. Therefore, when planning literacy within a discipline or an area of learning, if you plan it appropriately, teach it appropriately, it will enable you to have authentic teaching and learning within that AOLE. So when we're thinking about planning, teaching and learning of literacy and humanities, it's important to ask some of the following questions. So would a historian, geographer, theologian or sociologist, etc. read this type of text? Would a historian, etc., write in this way to this particular audience? Would a geographer, etc., think like this? And if we can ask ourselves these questions, it can help us plan appropriate literacy within humanities teaching and learning. So literacy is crucially important within the humanities disciplines. And on the screen, you will see a few quotes that come from the Geographical Association and the Historical Association about how important literacy is within humanities. So I'm just going to pause momentarily and just give you a chance to have a read of those and just digest them. So for me, being a history specialist and spending a considerable amount of my time teaching history to children, these two quotes on the right really resonate an awful lot with me. It is the be all and end all of everything we do within history, and naturally it's the same within geography and RVE. So what I'm going to do now is take you through the different elements of literacy, so reading, writing and oracy, and how they can be utilised and developed within humanities. So as you can see on the screen, reading is what we do in humanities. It is absolutely everything. So it's really crucial within humanities to ensure we are using a variety of texts to help children develop their disciplinary literacy skills. So we have to ensure that we ask the question, what type of texts are authentic in humanities? So what type of text would that historian, geographer, etc. use? So some examples on the screen on the left-hand side are textbooks, photographs, data maps, religious text, historical sources. They could be written sources, picture sources, or oral testimony. But it's also important to consider then how a historian or specialist within the humanities area would use these types of texts. So at its very basic level then, we would use these texts to help us comprehend events, people, places, etc., whether that be in the past or the modern day. We would find information from our reading, we would categorise it, summarise it and synthesise it. And by doing this, it will help us and children gain knowledge about history and geography and about what they're studying. Now, reading is really crucial in humanities to help us develop knowledge. Now, we need knowledge and children need knowledge in order to be able to talk and write, and achieving high-level reading skills, such as then response and analysis. We need to be able to have the knowledge before we can move on to those high-level reading skills. And if we don't have enough knowledge, and if children don't have enough knowledge, they will struggle to speak and write, because knowledge helps us become an ethically informed citizen and it helps us build cultural capital. However, within the humanities, we don't just read to comprehend. As historians and geographers, etc., we are critical when we read. So when we read, we respond and analyse what we've read. So by doing so, we infer meaning, we appreciate different interpretations and why people have different interpretations. We evaluate how useful and reliable these texts that we are reading are to comprehending our understanding. So ultimately, reading is what we do in humanities. So before I move on, does anybody have any questions about reading in humanities? Okay, so I'm just going to give you a moment now to have a chance to reflect on your current practice, and I'm going to pop a poll up on the screen. So this poll will be completely anonymous, so please be honest. But I'd like to know, how often do you provide opportunities for your learners to read like a historian or a geographer, etc.? So I'm launching that poll now. Hopefully it should pop up on your screen. Or it might be in the chat. Okay, fab. Thank you for participating in that. For the most part, people are saying they occasionally do this, which is great. So we're now going to move on and look at writing in humanities. So some types of writing are more important to some disciplines than others. When we think about authentic writing in humanities, we should ask the question, how would a historian, geographer, etc. write? So when a historian and geographers write, they write to synthesize information and evidence from what they've read. Therefore, authentic writing in humanities is organising ideas to inform analyse, evaluate, argue and advise. Now, the table you see on the screen has been devised by our literacy curriculum partners, utilising the terminology from PISA. And it conveys different types of text and writing types. So therefore, authentic and disciplinary writing within humanities involves expository writing, analysis and argumentation. So we're predominantly looking at the text types on the left-hand side of the screen. Generally, sorry about that. So generally, it is not literary or non-fiction writing, is not generally not instructional writing, or it's generally not transactional writing. So what I'm going to go through with you now is an example of expository writing from Pentline Primary. Now, Amy was hoping to be with us today. That is the Year 6 and Humanities lead in Pentline Primary. But unfortunately, she's got another meeting, so I'm going to do my best to go through it. She did also send some voice notes, but unfortunately, again, when saving this presentation, they didn't quite upload. So with her Year 6 class, Amy has been developing pupils' expository writing. So as you can see on the screen, this is writing to inform, explain. So in this case, Amy has mainly been developing pupil skills to write to inform. So how she has done this is she has, the Year 6 class have been looking at the concept identity and belonging, and specifically looking at how people who hold religious beliefs express their identity. So the question, how does a Muslim express their identity, was posed to children, and this requires a response that is expository, so it's writing to inform. Now, within humanities, when we write to inform, the writing needs to be factual, utilising key terms, dates, names, places, and statistics where possible. We wouldn't want to see any embellished or sensory language, etc., within our writing in humanities. So this Year 6 class have begun by developing their response to this question using the 5 W's questions. So who, what, where, when, and why questions. And the children have been encouraged to write kernel sentences to these who, what, where, when, and why questions. Now, a kernel sentence is a simple sentence. It's declarative. It shouldn't contain any modifiers or connectives. So, for example, the child ran. So I'm just going to share some examples with you now then. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, this child in particular said what? So a Muslim woman wears a hijab when they are attending a mosque or in public or going on a pilgrimage. And then they've asked the question why, as a sign of respect to their God. Similar with the example on the right. And then what the children have done is use those kernel sentences to the 5W questions to form a complete sentence to help explain how a Muslim expresses their identity. They also then did this with an example of Sikhism. Now, this type of writing to these pupils was completely new. They'd never done expository writing before, and using the technique of kernel sentences with the 5Ws was also a new technique to them. So as you can see with the example on the right, that the child has not always written kernel sentences, and they actually have written more detailed sentences. But what this work then culminated in was the child writing, or the children writing an expository paragraph about how religious people express their identity. And here is a complete example on the screen. And I'll just give you a moment to have a read of that example. So as you can see, this is a paragraph that is completely written to inform, it's completely factual, it's used an awful lot of key religious terminology. There's names in there such as Allah, they've talked about different types of Sikhism. The question itself doesn't lend itself to including dates like that could be included in this type of writing or statistics, but they certainly use an awful lot of key religious terminology. So it's a really good example of a piece of expository writing to inform. Another example that I've got comes from Goitrevau Primary School, and this example is a type of analysis writing and evaluative writing. And for those of you who attended the network meeting last term, you may have seen this example before. But what the children in Goitrevau Primary School have done is that they have interrogated a historical primary source, which you can see on the left, by annotating it. So they've developed their reading skills. They then utilised that to complete a piece of writing. And as I said, this is an example of analysis and evaluation. So by going through and thinking about how useful and reliable the source is, the children have analysed it. And then by looking at the strengths and limitations, they are beginning to evaluate. And again, this is a great example of extended writing that is very much developing their disciplinary literacy skills from a history point of view this time. Does anybody have any questions about these examples? So I'm just going to ask you to reflect one more time then. And this time, so I will ask you, how often do you provide opportunities for your learners to write like a historian and geographer, etc.? So completely anonymous. Please be honest. It's just a chance for you to think and reflect. Fantastic, thank you. So thank you for participating in that. It's great to see. Okay then, so we'll just move on to oracy. So there are two types of oracy. So we've got exploratory, which involves processes, learning through talk, sharing of ideas, problem solving, listening and valuing other people's opinions and everyone's voice. And this sort of oracy helps aid our understanding of what we're learning about. It can also help us as teachers assess what pupils are learning and how pupils are learning. But then on the flip side, you've got explanatory oracy, which focuses on the outcomes and learning to talk. And it's a lot more formal, sharing ideas, public speaking, debating, interviewing people, that sort of thing. Now, traditionally in school, humanities teaching and learning have tended to focus more on the reading and the writing. However, utilising this model of oracy, it can certainly help improve children's writing skills if they talk about what they're writing, and in doing so it can help them comprehend what they're reading and so forth as well. So it certainly has a merit that there is definitely a need to do more oracy through humanities within our teaching and learning. So does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, then. So what I think would be a good idea now is for us to pop into breakout rooms. So on the screen, there are two questions that might prompt your discussion. So how do you encourage pupils to read, write and think like a historian and geographer, etc. in your current practice? And what might you do, or is there anything that you might do differently going forward after this network meeting? I hope you found that time beneficial. So I was just wondering if there would be somebody in each group who would be willing to give us a flavour of the discussions you had. I saw room 1 were actually chatting via the chat function, which is absolutely fine, and there was a lot of geography talk going on. So that would be really interesting for everybody to hear about that. Sure. Hello, Langstone?
Yeah, we were talking more about the history and the RVE So it'd be really interesting to hear what the geography group.
That's a coincidence then. Yeah.
Yeah, because we felt that it was almost easier. We felt that sort of history and RVE lent itself a little bit more to the writing rather than the geography did.
Okay.
So, but I can't remember her name. Sorry, one of the ladies from Pilgwentley in our group, she was telling us she's here representing LLC, and she was telling us about the writing revolution.
Yeah.
Which they've been using a lot of, and so that was really handy. I've just been having a little Google now, and I'll have a closer look afterwards, but that looks really good as well, you know, linked to everything that you were, because I wasn't aware of that when you were sharing it in the PowerPoint earlier. So
yeah, really sorry, that's probably a mistake on my part. So Pentline Primary participated in the writing revolution as well. So that is actually, that's something that where they've learnt those strategies and has been part of the writing revolution trial. So it was really handy then that Pilgwentley were able to share with you how they've been using the writing revolution. So I'm not sure who's on the call from Pilgwentley, but would you be willing to give us a little bit of flavour of how you've been developing expository writing?
Hi, sorry, I've literally just come back into the meeting. I've had to just go and sort something out.
No problem.
But yeah, we've used it predominantly. We've focused on using it in literacy this year. The humanities lead Viv has been on the training as well, but our focus has more been on the literacy, but we've used the sentence expansion. So we've more or less just trialed 3 strategies this year, which was a sentence expansion, fragments and sentences, and
one of my faves,
the scrambled sentence as well. So we've trialed those 3 strategies. But yeah, the focus has more been through literacy rather than humanities. But I think looking at this, I think Viv and I will look at how we can develop it further next year and look at something like the sort of paragraph outlines, because it would fit in quite well. And you know, things like with, I was saying we did a comparison between humanism and Christianity.
Nice.
So I think using something like the writing revolution would help structure that a little bit better next year.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. So the example I shared from Pentline Primary obviously was a humanities example, but they actually trialed the same strategy with science first, and they did that last term. And then this example now, this term, as they've used it in humanities, and they've literally just done it last week. But because they'd used the strategies in science, they then just applied them in humanities as well. So yeah, that's lovely to hear. Anything else from, was that group 2? I'm not sure what group you were in for. Sorry. Was there anything else from group 2? Okay then. Room 1. Is there anybody who would like to share? Emily, can I put you on the spot so you can talk about the geography? Her mic's not working. Okay, so from Emily's chat, Emily, I'll see if I can give it an overview based on what you said in the chat, but by all means, feel free to post it in the main chat as well, especially if I get something wrong. It sounds like you're doing whole school fieldwork. I'm going to assume because it's Fieldwork Festival month with the Geographical Association. So everybody from reception up to year 6, I believe, is conducting fieldwork. And the ideas and resources have come all from the Geographical Association. Hopefully that's right, Emily. And I wonder whether you are going to utilise their certificate as well to make sure all children get a certificate from conducting fieldwork. But just to link geographical fieldwork then back to the writing, if we look at this type, the text types of writing, very much writing up a fieldwork report would very much probably be along the lines of, especially up in year 6, come from that analysis type of writing. So hopefully you'll have some really good fieldwork reports, Emily, from that. And it's lovely to hear that the whole school are engaging with that. And I know a couple of others of you have also posted to say that you're engaging in that as well. So it's lovely to actually hear. Was there anybody else who would like to share anything before we move on? No? Okay then, so just a few things from me then before we wrap this up. So if you would, or anybody in your school, like a little bit more support or professional learning on disciplinary literacy within humanities, then scheduled for the autumn and spring term in the new academic year, we have some professional learning. So within the autumn term, we're going to run 2 sessions called Reading in Humanities, and session 2 will be a follow-on from session 1. And then in the spring term, we're going to do Writing in Humanities. And again, session 2 will be a follow-on from session 1. Now, within these sessions, we'll go through various strategies, techniques, approaches. We'll give you resources, show examples of pupil work of how you can develop these skills within your humanities teaching and learning within a progressive way across the school. So that's coming up in the new academic year. We also then have, in 2 weeks' time, another network meeting. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't host a network meeting twice in one term, but I am capitalising on the enthusiasm around Digimaps. So Digimaps for schools seems to be very popular within our schools at the moment. So I thought it would be really handy to have a network meeting, which will be held on the 3rd of July. Within this team space, just for an hour from 2:30 till 3:30. To give schools the opportunity to share how they have been using Digimaps, but also if you haven't been using Digimaps and you haven't got access to Digimaps, then please come along to see how other schools have been using it. And if you would like to join us for that network meeting, then please use the link on the screen to let us know that you will be there. Great Trevell Primary School also have a few spaces left on their Sharing Practice event. So at the beginning of July, on the 2nd and 9th of July, they're going to be opening their doors and inviting practitioners to come and look at how they are approaching humanities teaching and learning. So if you would like to attend that, then again, use the links on the screen to reserve your place. But that's just about it from me. Before we do shoot off though, does anybody have any questions?
Hi, Bridie.
Yeah.
During our meeting, one of the ladies said about sort of a catch-up event as well. I think she said it was the 27th of, I did write it down, 27th of June, online writing revolution.
Oh, it's a sharing event. Yes.
Then, because I just wondered if I might be able to jump onto that to find out a little bit more about it, maybe.
No, absolutely you can. It's a sharing event. I actually think it's in person. Although that may have
it's
changed.
Online, it is.
Oh, it's been moved online now, is it?
Yeah, it's all online.
Right, fab. Okay, thank you. So I'm glad you're here. I will find the booking link for that for you, and I will post it in our Humanities team space. Is that okay, Lansdowne?
Oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you ever so much.
No problem. So if you would like any more support with enhancing and developing disciplinary literacy within your school or your teaching, or if there's another practitioner, then please give me a shout. My contact details are on the screen. I'm more than happy to support and help plan collaboratively, etc. So just before you shoot off, I'd really appreciate your feedback from this network meeting this afternoon. So if you can scan the QR code, or use the link on the screen just to complete the evaluation form. But from me, I hope the rest of the term goes really well for you and you do have a lovely summer holidays.